Well, Andre, today is January the 23rd, 2025. And I don't even remember how long ago it was that you and I first met. But you were already absolutely a man on a mission. You were in charge of a national airline. You were committed to having that airline improve its stature in the industry, transform the culture of all of the people who had the privilege of working there with you, inspiring them, motivating them, training them, supporting them, leading them to a higher level of performance, and you succeeded. And then a few years ago, you moved over to another national airline. Now, I haven't mentioned either of them. I'm going to leave that to you. Would you tell us just a little bit about your career as CEO of Airlines?
So it started back in South Africa with South African Airways in 2000, when I'd been CFO for a year and a half, and I'd come across from Comair British Airways into South African Airways, and then picked up the role of basically CEO. And that was at the time when Nelson Mandela was president of South Africa. And he had a very close relationship with the airline. So I had this incredible privilege of occasionally working with him. And I always say that when I look at my mentorship over the years, that was probably the most important and profound mentorship I ever had.
And at such an early stage of your life and your career.
And there's quite an interesting story of how it happened. At the time when he came into the position of president, we had a radio jockey. This was in 1994, 1995. We had a radio jockey called Wackett Simpson. It was called Radio 5. And he used to prank people because he could imitate Nelson Mandela's voice perfectly. And as you know, Nelson was called Madiba. So you would get this call, you answer and you hear Madiba's voice, you get all excited. He leads you down a path and then calls you back and says you've been whacked. That's Wackett. So one Saturday morning, this was late 1998, we're driving in the car and my phone rings. And Madiba's voice on the phone saying, "Andre, is that Andre?" And Sandra says, "Turn off the phone, it's Wackett. You can't take the call, you make an idiot of you." She turns off the phone. This happened 3 times. Eventually he said, "Who's next to you doing this?" And I said, "My wife Sandra." He said, "Well, Andre, here's my street address and my home. I'm waiting for you." So we turn off the phone, key it into the GPS, we get there, it's Nelson's home. Walk inside, turns to Sandra and he says, "You've been whacked." So it was quite funny. So that's how I met him. And it was quite an interesting discussion a day where he said, "I'd like you to come in as CEO." And
what an amazing moment. You think of how many CEOs are chosen from the CFO position. And
yes.
Generally that's because the CFO knows how the numbers work.
Yes.
They don't always make the best CEO, but there you are at that moment of transformation in your responsibility, and you get a mentor like Nelson Mandela.
But there's 2 parts to it. So the other part was I had just come through 8 years of war in South Africa. We were at war in Angola, and we were faced with Cubans and Russians in that war that went on for 22 years. And I always prided myself of being what I called a tormentor leader, my way or the highway. And then I met what I always call my better half. We went on our first date, and I was driving, and we have quite a lot of road rage in South Africa as a normal thing. And there was a slow driver in front of me, and I started getting really anxious and using a couple of words and trying to encourage this idiot to pull across. And eventually, as I overtook, she turned to me and she said, "So tell me, Andre, do you think he heard you?" So obviously, he didn't hear me. And I felt very embarrassed. And she said, "I think you have an emotional control problem." And she said nothing else. We went to our dinner. When I dropped her off at home, I said, "Can I see you again?" She said, No. I need you to do a little test for me. It's called the Baron EQ test. And it tests emotional control. The test came back emotional cripple. So you can imagine I then said to her, now what? She said, well, here's the deal. You're going to do emotions 101, 102, 103, NLP, Enneagram, all this work, and then come and visit me again. And I had a choice. Do I walk away or do I do it? And the challenge was huge. And she suggested at least 20 coaching sessions to deal with my aggression and this tormentor as a leader, to become the mentor as a leader. And that was the journey. And that took me about a year. I went back to her, and today we married for 24 years. And I must tell you, it was an incredible journey for me to change myself from a tormentor to a mentor leader. And then I met Ron Kaufman.
Oh, hold on. So Andre, 24 years ago, you were 50. You're already a mature adult, highly accomplished in your industry. You thought, I know how to do what it is I do. That's why I keep rising. And at this critical moment, you get two mentors.
Yeah.
Dramatically unique, yet obviously coupled in an interesting way. One, a completely different style of leader, and the other, a completely different style of human being.
So I didn't know when I met her, she was an Enneagram psychologist, and that she was just analyzing me those first hours, my behavior, and today the journey I've been on. I always joke and say, I get coaching at home every day, 24/7. And I'm going to be so careful what I say and how I say it when I get home.
Yeah.
And she traps me a lot. She'll say, hey, love, how was your day? And I say, oh, she'll say, come and sit next to me. Let's unpack what happened. Can you see their intention? Can you see your behavior? And look, it's an amazing life journey, but it is tough.
Andre.
So now I've learned, when I'm in the car before I walk in, I'll vent. When I come in the home, says, hello, how's your day? Amazing, beautiful. So I avoid a coaching session.
Nice. Yeah. So how many years were you CEO of South African Airways before you then went on to the next nation?
Yeah, so I was 5 years. And I was part of a transformation where they agreed that I would be replaced with what they call a previously disadvantaged person. In other words, a South African that had been disadvantaged by apartheid for years. Because if you remember what happened after apartheid, we all went through a truth and reconciliation process in the country. And all of us that had national service had to go through the process.
Yes.
So I was then replaced, and then I moved on, and I ended up at Air Mauritius, where I was for 11, 12 years.
Let's talk about that transformation.
Yes.
In South Africa, you were brought in. It was a huge career development move for you.
Right.
The first time you as CEO of a national airline, you helped transition over 5 years. Now you go to another island nation. And again, a very close relationship between the national airline and the government, different style of government going on there. What did you find? What did you do? How did the transformation occur?
Yes. So what happened is that, remember, even at South African, I had a level of transformation because South African Airways had been under an era of apartheid, where you had a lot of restriction, embargoes, countries you couldn't fly to. So I went through part of how we resuscitated ourselves afterwards from that. But in Mauritius, I found that the tourism was 40% of the economy, and the airline was not in a good state and needed a lot of work. And it had just come through the hedging crisis, where it had lost a lot of money, bad hedging had been done, and it needed to be completely rebuilt. So I initially came in for a year as CFO to get to grips with the finances and all the issues, and then I took over as CEO. And I've been in that CEO role for 8 years before I left there.
And when you talk about financial issues, there were financial issues, and you with your CFO background knew what to do with that. But there were also cultural issues. What did you find?
Lots.
What did you change?
Yes, so lots. I found that in general, service wasn't the highest priority. It was all about trying to survive financially. And at the time, we just didn't understand why we're in business. You're in business about service to customers and a return on investment coming second, because if you don't get the first part right, the return doesn't happen. And one of the first hotels that I went and spent a weekend at in Mauritius was the Lux Group. And I walked in Lux Grand, this was Lux Le Morne, and I was absolutely blown away by the service experience, the innovation, the attention to detail, just the warmth at which, and things they did differently. The hotels normally have a reception counter. You drive in, you go to the reception. Here from the car park, they took you to their own coffee bar. They had a barista that made your own blend of coffee, created packets with your name on, and the rest of the stay at the hotel, you walked around with your own coffee packets, or they had it in the restaurants for you. And your reception was the coffee bar. And from there to the hotel, and when you walk in, the towels have your names embroidered on, and it was just, wow. And I stood there and I said, wow, what happened here? And they said, oh, this is Up Your Service. I said, what's that? And they said, there's this guy in Singapore called Ron Kaufman. One thing led to another. We got together, and over a period, and our problem was we were rated in terms of Skytrax, which, as you know, is one of the preeminent rating agencies in the world, at the time around a 3-star, competing against international carriers who were 4-star and 5-star. And I said, how do we change this? And that became the biggest journey for us. We contacted you, you helped us put together an education program and a development program on our service processes. And over time, within 2 years, we became 4-star. Best airline to the Indian Ocean, and we were very, very happy with the progress. And that took me, that was a journey of just on 8-9 years. Yeah. And then one morning I got approached by a headhunter who said to me, Andre, we have this amazing job for you in Fiji. And at first I tried to work out, where's Fiji? You know, because if you're that end of the world, which is the Indian Ocean, Africa, Fiji is something you hear about, but you never know. I knew it from the rugby, that they could play sevens, you know, and they were good rugby players. So I met the then outgoing CEO who was retiring, and also government in Fiji, and they sold me this retirement job. They said, come to Fiji, the airline has been restructured. It's a holiday job. You just got to keep things running. You're going to spend a lot of time on the beach. And I was suckered into that. And I ended up accepting the role. And when I lifted the veneer, after a few weeks here, I realized this is no holiday job. And the journey started. And of course, at the time, we were rated a 2.5-star Skytrax rating. Oh. And 102nd in the world in terms of the top 100 airlines, not even in the top 100. And I started, first thing I did, Up Your Service was brought in. And I can tell you something I'm very proud of, which I didn't quite achieve at Air Mauritius, is that we have maintained our program running for the last 8-9 years at Fiji Airways. Every quarter, all our staff are taken through an Up Your Service refresher. We keep reinforcing on them what is service. Service is taking an action to give value to someone. We've taken the building blocks. We work through the building blocks. We have the levels of service from criminal up to unbelievable, and we live it. We've lived it for 9 years. And we have just gone up and up and up in terms of service rating. So we have, I can say, systematically year on year elevated our airline. Mm-hmm. Today we ranked 14th in the world. We're an Apex 5-star major airline, a Skytrax 4-star best airline to the Pacific, Australia. And we've just gone up and up, and our service is incredible. And a very large part of that is this dedicated, continuous improvement we do using the Up Your Service program. Very happy, very proud that we've done it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Andre, you've had so many positive results from 2.5-star all the way up. from new equipment that's been brought in, the retention of your staff, the loyalty of your customers, the service ratings and rankings that you're getting throughout the industry, the love that the entire nation has. You fly for Fiji, of all the positive results. Tell us a couple that you're most proud of and why.
Yeah, so we're right from the outset. I realized I needed to take that learning that I've had, that mentorship, the change from tormentor to mentor, the Enneagram, neuro-linguistic programming, the cognitive psychology development. I needed to start with my team. I realized we had a very, very strong team, but they needed development. Mm-hmm. And I brought in specialists from Australia, from all over the world. And we went through the first game changer that I brought in. I've got 6, 7 game changers, was how I get our people to continuously punch above their weight by being very focused on their mindset, to a go big, stay big mindset. Because we're a small airline competing against Qantas, Air New Zealand, American Airlines. When you stand back and look at it, we are dot. How do you change the mindset to say, come on guys, we'll take you on. We can be as big as you, at least in the way we deliver service and our performance, and where to go big. And we did that. That was the first mindset change. The second mindset change is we're amazing. And we can deliver service like no one else because we've got the Fijian spirit. We've got that, what I call authentic warmth and happiness in the country. In fact, our payoff line for the country is where happiness comes naturally. So using those ingredients, we basically did a lot of work on our self-development, into what I would call self-mastery, for us to be a better leadership team with very clear values. And we have 3 key values. The values on the wall, we took them off the wall and we said, which of the 3 we're going to live? And the first is 200% accountability. Before I hold you accountable, I ask myself, what's my part? What's my accountability? And we drive that, and we've developed behaviors that build it and behaviors that break it down. And we all walk around with a little card that says, these are the behaviors that build 200% accountability, these break it down. Second value like that, same thing, is honesty. We can't work together if we can't be honest with each other. And the last value is care and respect. If you don't respect people and treat them with care, you don't belong in our company. So those 3 simple values are the core of how we exist in this company, and we live it every single day. They all carry, as I say, a little card to remind them of the behaviors that drive it and break it down. And it's been that level of, we call that vertical growth. Because the minute you're aware and mindful of what you're doing in your behavior, you have vertical growth from a cognitive psychology perspective. So that was game changer 1. Game changer 2 is we said, let's modernize our fleet. We had an old fleet, 20-year-old aircraft competing against the big guys. So today we have one of the youngest fleets in the world. We have the Airbus A350s, amazing product. We have the Maxes and our medium range aircraft. And we have, as I say, one of the most modern fleets, fuel efficient, a lot of positive aspects in terms of eco, and a very strong ESG eco project and focus in the business. The third game changer strategy is we recognize we have a challenge model. As a small airline that mainly serves a destination, holiday-based country destination, 90% of our traffic is inbound leisure, holiday makers. And as I say, holiday makers have a lot of time, little money. They're looking for good deals. On the other hand, business traffic, business people have little time, a lot of money, they'll pay top dollar. It's normally their company's paying. Now, when 90% of your business model are the people looking for good value, it's challenging. Also, we offer one destination in the world called Fiji. And yes, we do connect some traffic through to the US and other destinations, but our core business, holiday makers coming to Fiji, And we're competing against airlines that serve the world out of their markets. So
Mm.
we're tiny, we have no market power, we don't have a frequent flyer program because we only have no holiday maker coming to Fiji for their one holiday is going to join our frequent flyer program. So all these things coupled together, the biggest one is a lack of scale. 24 aircraft, 5 types. You're competing against giants that have 200-300 aircraft of a type. So using all of that, we said, well, then we need to improve 1 inch a day. How do we find a little something in every area in the business? Bring in specialists from time to time, benchmark against the best, and a little 1 inch a day. And we've done it. We've become more efficient. We've managed to overcome the limitations of the business model, and we punch up with the best there. We stand alongside the giants and give them a run for their money. So very proud of it. The next strategy was service. And here we brought you in, and we have been, as I mentioned earlier, on that journey for 9 years, and it's been remarkable for us. The following is we built our own aviation academy. We were sending our pilots all around the world every 6 months for their license renewals and also for promotion and development and basically, moving from a first officer to a captain or bringing them in from a turboprop aircraft to the jets, all forms of promotion. And I worked out that on any one day, about 20% of our pilots were around the world at foreign simulator centers. And if you take that inefficiency, plus the dollars I was paying, I bought our own facility. Today we have 4 full flight simulators, a 330, a MAX, an ATR, and an Airbus A350, and 4 fixed devices, and then one of the best facilities in the world. They come from all over the world to our facility, and it's just been amazing. We've promoted more local pilots. It's been a game changer, a massive game changer for us.
Fantastic.
So using those game changer strategies, we've elevated ourselves. We have 5-star Apex major airline. We're a 4-star Skytrax. We're best airline. Incredible journey for us.
And I saw just recently in December where now you are flying nonstop to Dallas and are becoming a full core One World member. So the entire American Airlines and every other One World member is part of your network now.
Right. So I'll talk about that because now it started 5 years ago. Qantas, Cathay, British Airways, and American, who are the founders of One World, decided to start a junior program which they called Connect. And one morning I got a call to say, we're so impressed with Fiji Airways and what you've done in terms of service and growth and your role you play in your region. We would like you to become the first Connect partner airline, the junior One World. And that was a massive accolade for us because, to be chosen out of all options they had all over the world by the 4 founder partners. I recall when they finally gave us the sort of certification, I stood in Sydney at the IATA, the Airlines Association AGM, receiving it from the 4 CEOs of those 4 airlines. And to stand there as this little small airline receiving that accolade was great. And from there it's booked. And then recently we decided we have to find a solution for our American market. Because if you look at our business today, roughly 50% is Australians coming to Fiji. We bring them in. We bring in 70% of all arrivals into the country. About 18% are New Zealanders and about 18% from the US. But the US, given the size of that market, is our future growth opportunity. And we fly daily to Los Angeles, and we started saying, well, is it working the way it should, or is there something it doesn't add? And it isn't 100% because our partner, which is American, sits in Dallas. And the logic is to look at Dallas. They have 1,000 flights a day. They connect 269 cities to Dallas Airport, Fort Worth, and that's our partner. So we said, well, our next destination has to be Dallas. And in December the 10th, We started our inaugural flights to Dallas, but it's gone better than that. American is so supportive of our flights there and our partnership. They, together with Qantas and Cathay and British Airways and the One World Management, have asked us to become a full member. But there's more to it. We've adopted American Airlines loyalty program.
Yes.
So American Advantage is now Fiji Airways loyalty program. And that, together with the One World Partnership, where we're now becoming on the 31st of March a full member, and Dallas Airport, well, America's is our golden goose of the future.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, may you have many healthy flocks of geese coming in from the United States, the new market, but also from Australia and New Zealand and in other parts of the world.
So the other markets are core. They're what I call core, and our growth is the US.
Excellent. Let me ask you another.
That is our seventh game changer strategy.
Which is
Dallas in the US market, American Airlines partnership, and their loyalty program, which is one of the biggest in the world, and they have a database of members of nearly 100 million active members.
Yeah. So Andre, all of this strategy for growth, for improvement, etc., you mentioned in there, but I want to focus now more on this issue of Fijian culture, how unique the Fijian culture is. And there are a couple of angles on this. Let me lay it out and then you take off with your reply. One is you literally use the tagline, "We fly for Fiji." That whole sense of we are the national representative of the country worldwide, in addition to your rugby success. And we are going to do it at a stature that the rest of the nation can be proud of. And of course they are. I'm intrigued about how that relationship is evolving, because the things you brought into the country through the airline, it's a level of performance, it's a level of responsibility, it's a nature of culture that isn't as native to Fiji itself. But on the other hand, Fiji has so much authenticity, so much core happiness, so much intimacy and family care in the culture itself. Talk to us about how these two are weaving together. You fly for Fiji, and yet what's unique to Fiji that you're bringing to the world through the airline?
Right, so it starts right with our livery. If you look at the livery on our tail and on parts of the aircraft, the livery was designed by a Fijian lady in one of the villages on a masi. A masi is mulberry leaves weaved as a mat, and she designed a circle that has inner circles and diamonds, and it talks the history of the airline, our relationship with the nation, and it talks the relationship with the customer. And it's all about the spirit of love and caring, because that's what Fiji is about. It's that happiness that comes from nurturing and love and caring. And so people often say to me, how do you define happiness? Well, happiness comes if you nurture someone and you give them incredible service and you care and you genuinely do that from the heart, you're going to see happiness. And so the happiness is that spirit of love and caring and nurturing. And our livery talks that. It's not just a painting. It is an incredible message that the whole country associates with. And it starts with that. Then we look at why we fly for Fiji. We're the largest company in the country. Almost 50% of the economy is based on tourism. We bring in 70% of those tourists. We're the biggest brand ambassador around the world. Our Tourism Fiji, of which I chair, spends about 30 million a year on tourism marketing. We spend 150 million a year. So we work together. And our mutual job is to bring tourists to Fiji, to bring people to Fiji. Come and experience this incredible, authentic hospitality and nurturing that makes you happy. And so Gallup, I think, has rated us one of the happiest countries in the world a number of years in a row. And it's all linked. So our staff, I tell them every day, and they behave that way, I tell them every day, you are custodians of the most important organization in the country. We bring in tourists who, when they come in, create hospitals through what they spend in the country. They nurture the country. They provide income and food. And without tourism, we wouldn't have an economy. It's half the economy. And that's how it's all linked together. So our staff see their role as being the ambassadors, as being I would say even deeper than that, the nurturers of these amazing tourists that help this country in every possible way. And that's the link of the entire spirit that we talk about, the Fijian spirit. And it starts when you get on board. As you get on board, the first words you will hear are bula. And bula means welcome. Come and enjoy this beautiful island, the beautiful people. We welcome you. We have love for you.
The welcome on board bula is just one example. The logo, for example, when you talk about the livery on the tail of the plane, and the depth of meaning, the wovenness, if you will, of the history, the culture, and the airline's expression. Do you, of course, teach your staff that? Do you teach that to your customers? Customers who come to Fiji and want an authentic tourist experience of the native culture. How else do you make that already start happening on board? When they're arriving and as they're leaving, it's also their last impression of the culture.
So as you get on board, the first words you will hear is bula. Then you'll experience this warm, authentic service. Now, I've always said, every airline has a personality. What is our personality? We're not trying to be the most efficient, the most elegant, the most, which many other airlines have as their key objective. We're about making you feel at home. So you'll often hear through the journey, welcome into our home. You are so important to us. And the way that they then serve you, the care, the flexibility they have to meet your desires is just quite exceptional. And I haven't had a customer come off and say, oh, that wasn't good. They all come off and say, we never expected anything like that. So they play such a vital role. And that's your first encounter of country Fiji when you get on board Fiji Airways. I always say you get in another airline, you're not going to feel Fiji until you get to the hotel or into the airport. With us, you pick it up immediately. You immediately feel that warmth, that genuineness, the authenticity of the welcome into the country. And I also say another thing often. Here's a fact. We're the largest generator of foreign currency for the country. Our turnover this year is 2 billion, and we've grown from when I joined from around 500 million to 2 billion. Every dollar coming from a ticket sale on Fiji Airways flows into the country. Every ticket sold on a foreign airline, nothing comes into the country. So I always say to everyone, remember that. How important it is for us to satisfy our customers, meet their desires, and get them to return. So we have a lot of very common aspects that we talk about all the time. I tell them they are custodians of the most important company in the country that keeps this economy rolling, that builds the economy, and that brings tourists to come and enjoy one of the happiest countries in the world.
So you've talked about what you're doing on board as first impression. Let's get that Fijian, heartfelt, loving, caring, home feeling occurring the moment they start getting on board.
That's right.
But you're also the last impression. What kind of special touches can you share with us that occur as you're taking tourists back to their home destination and you want to leave them with that feeling of warmth and love and care?
So starting with just on board, when you get on board, we have a number of videos in our in-flight entertainment which talk about the spirit. It actually shows you how the lady designed our logo and the livery on her masi. It talks about what the masi means. So we have quite a few educational videos on it. And again, that's available when you return. But the same thing, when you get back on board, our crew are there to ask you how your journey was. They come and share thoughts and ideas. If someone leaves with a birthday, I'll take them a little aircraft model with a cake. And so we do a lot of special things to remind them. And the hotels do a similar thing. So we work in concert with the hotels.
You're head of the tourism commission.
Yeah.
And
Of the tourism board, yes.
Tourism board. Talk to us about that interface between an airline and the entire rest of the hospitality industry, the resorts, the hotels, the B&Bs, the restaurants, the tourism attractions. What's that interface like?
Very important, and we work very well together, both with the tourism board and the hoteliers. We partners. We have the same common objective: bring more tourists to Fiji, make their experience exceptional. And where you saw this play out was during COVID. We as a country had a very different approach to COVID. We realized that shutting down when 50% of your economy is tourism, it's a serious blow to all the businesses, the hotels, the airline. And the one thing we had to be is totally ready the moment borders open, and to be the first mover out there. And it's the first time I've ever seen the concept of what we call a country Inc. work together in a way like you cannot believe. The airline ourselves led most of it. We led health and safety programs to ensure that when we open, we have hospital standard health and safety. We make sure tourists will feel very comfortable traveling here. They'll be well protected. We had all the hotels do the same, working with us. We created a special holiday package at a 50% discount on airfare, hotel costs, food and beverage everywhere. And when the markets opened, we were the leaders out there. And that's why we saw ourselves grow by not only being back to normal within 4 months, but by growing by 40% in the first year. Unbelievable. And just having that right motive of not shutting down and being ready. So we had a couple of key objectives there: to survive and thrive the moment markets open by being totally ready. So we had ready programs throughout the country, working together in concert, having that, I would say, a mutual leadership of ensuring everywhere in the country we were aligned and getting ready for that day we opened.
And you know what's fascinating is you demonstrated not only your readiness, but also the way in which the nation of Fiji is one that can be counted on in a crisis, in a situation. And no wonder the other major airlines of the world would look at you and say, listen, if we're going to have a small airline join us as the first one and then upgrade to full member, that's where we're going. Great.
Yeah.
I want to get a little bit deeper.
Just on that, every business that was ready in terms of their health and safety protocols and plans had to put a sticker on their cars, on their windows, on their buildings saying 100% ready.
Right.
So all you walked around was a country and a nation saying 100% ready, 100% ready.
Right.
And government
ready
pushed
to take good care of you.
To take good care of you and welcome you back with our arms open to warmth, happiness, and love.
Nice. Let's talk about that. With Lux, the resort group that you mentioned that's based in Mauritius, where you and I initially met because you had the pleasure of a holiday there.
Yeah.
I worked with them. We've been working together for about 14 years, all the way from back at the beginning when the brand was created and when this tagline of we care, time matters. Okay, we make each moment matter. Right. And then after quite a few years, we added to that, we care about what matters. And that was about 6 months before COVID. And so they were already in their minds ready to take care of the customer, which they call the guest, care of the colleagues, all of the team members, care of the community in which the resorts are actually located and the other tourism attractions are located, care for the ecology. And that's very similar to when you say, well, really at the heart of the Fijian culture, the authentic Fijian culture, there's this love. There's this caring, there's this sense of home, there's this devotion to family. Tell us more about that spirit, what you call authentic Fijian culture, that you want to now see flourish so that the airline is the natural global expression of that.
Right. So we believe it's that nurturing that we show from the moment you get on board. That bula, the welcome that says, welcome into our home. You're part of the family. We treat you as family as you sit down. how do you treat family? There's that care, there's that love, there's that nurturing, that nothing is too much trouble attitude and I would say mindset that our people have. And you feel that from the moment you sit there. And you, as the journey goes, it just gets deeper and more. You know, I've seen it. I've seen a passenger get in and fall asleep. They'll take a blanket and cover them. And when they wake up and they're wrapped in a blanket. And you know, they never ask, it's just that care. That's what they do at home. That's how they live. It's all about that community caring. And when you get on board, you're part of that community. You're in the home. And it's an incredible experience. And I've seen it even at the hotels. You know, we've got tourists that come back and their kids, year after year, when mom and dad talk holiday, they want to go to Fiji. Because at the hotel, in the kiddies club, they become friends with the staff. The staff nurture them, care for them. We always joke and say, as you arrive at the hotel, you don't see your kids again until you leave. Because they're looked after 24/7. And you get a level of nurturing in the whole country. That is what Fiji is all about.
That is what Fiji's all about. Now, I've seen you from coming out of South Africa and the trauma that was part of that cultural experience and your personal transformation. You were one of the most fortunate, right on the edge of that, as the world there changed. What you discovered when you went to a place like Mauritius, which has its own cultural challenges, and the contribution you made. But when Andre went to Fiji, you and your wife were gifted with an opportunity to take that heartfelt, genuine, loving, caring for other people, and not only bring it into an industry that you love and that you're so good at, but bring into a part of the world and a national culture. How have you seen this We Fly for Fiji influencing the nation, the way in which education's occurring, the way in which the national sense of pride is evolving?
So we've become the role model company for the country. And our leadership and our staff and the awards that we win has made every Fijian proud and aspiring to do the same. So I think as a role model, leading that part where we compete against the giants, where we're a small little operator and we're standing along. I always say the moments that spoke so much. We had some of our staff with me in Los Angeles when we got the Apex 5-star major airline. And I got on the stage was just sitting there and then on the stage next to the CEOs of Delta, Air France. These are airlines with hundreds and hundreds of aircraft, Emirates, and then they say Fiji Airways 5-star major airline. And you think, well, we've got 2,000 people, we've got 24 aircraft, and I'm standing alongside the giants. And then coming back into the country and the accolades that we get right across the country for these awards speaks volumes. And you can see the pride of the nation saying, let's all aspire to do the same. But you know, it's the people that make it. It's the team. You know, we've been talking about the leadership that I've had here, but let me tell you, without the team, leadership means nothing.
Clear.
We have an incredible team of people.
Clear. And you have helped that team to evolve in terms of vertical personal development in the way
leadership team, yes. And then across the board, because Anna, as you know, who leads our Up Your Service program, she's
Anna
our
Morris.
Chief People Officer.
Yeah.
She's our Chief People Officer. She has built into the Up Your Service program some neurosemantic and cognitive psychology modules. So we do NLP right across the company, where we drive the understanding that your thinking drives your behavior. And if you want your behavior to improve, you've got to change your thinking, become aware of it, mindful, and work on your thinking. And how she's got little programs to help all our staff from the lowest level to the highest understand NLP and how they can improve their thinking and therefore their behavior.
Fantastic. Andre, your development and your assistance in providing of the tools for people to improve themselves, to improve the way we work as one, as a team. to improve the performance of the airline. So much of that is coupled like this with the idea of continuous service improvement, creating more value for other people. And Fiji is a world-class role model of successfully doing that over years throughout the culture. But now, recently, there's even more conversation with Anna and the other people within the organization who are really in the workshop leader position, who keep that uplifting service program alive, not only to focus on service improvement, but also on service innovation, taking new ideas and testing them out and seeing which ones are going to work and improving the good ones and then embedding them into the organization. I know you well enough to know that you're going to be continuously introducing new things. Tell us what you think may be over the horizon.
So one of the things that we've seen from what I'd call this continuous investment in innovation over the last 7-8 years, if we take the 2 COVID years out, it's 7 years. We've elevated this airline to where today it's highly respected and we're recognized around the world. And I know that from many sources, when we interact with suppliers, major operators out there, other airlines, and you say Fiji Airways, you can just see the level of respect that we have. And we're a tiny dot. And I've realized that it's had such a profound impact on our survival because, as I mentioned, we have a challenge business model. And to sustain and survive with it, we've had to punch above our weights. Right. So I'm now realizing what we've achieved up until now, as you know, according to your ladder of service or your 6 levels of service, it's becoming expected. and soon we'll slip down to lower thresholds. So we're going to move the next level up, and we have set ourselves a target for the ultimate service rating in the world, which is called world class. And we now have got this massive effort going on in the company to get the world class service rating from Apex for 2025 and be the only airline in this region that will get there. And this will be another major milestone for that we're working on for 2025. It will now, I think, lift us to an even greater level.
And that means that you're going to be doing everything that you say you're going to be doing and doing it brilliantly again and again and again, uniquely, individually for every different customer, every passenger.
So world class becomes even more personalized. We're personalized to a point today. This takes it to a new level.
There you go.
That personalization with a bit more finesse and polish, but keeping the Fijian spirit, the Fijian culture is our challenge for 2025, and we're very confident we'll get there. And of course, core to all of this, we'll continue with our Up Your Service program, because that's service education and the building blocks that we work on all the time have been core to everything. And Anna will continue every quarter with a refresher for every staff member.
Very good, very good. Andre, you just gave me the hint I was looking for, because when you say the key is now going to be even greater customization, what you're referring to then is a level of intimacy in understanding, in connection with, in a sense of developing trust with each and every passenger and every member of your team.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We do a bit of it today. This is taking it to a different level.
Yeah, well, we'll be right there with you. You mentioned how much your suppliers respect and admire who you've become as a company. And absolutely, sir, we are one of those partners with you who are so proud to be able to tell the world about what it is that you've done, because it isn't just you as your CEO, but as what you've done with the team and what the team has done with their families and the families have done with the nation and the nation has done in support of the airline and of the tourism industry and of the national reputation.
I'll tell you one that occurred recently to me. I flew back from a different region in the world recently on one of the major airlines, very good airline, very highly rated. And I got into their business class cabin, and as I sat there, the next minute their captain was standing next to me. And he came down from the cockpit and he said, I come to shake your hand because I believe you're the CEO of Fiji Airways. He says, there are 15 of our ex-captains that left us to go and work for Fiji Airways. I would like to come as well. and you know, for the senior captain of a major airline coming to me, this little small island airline, and saying something like that was quite something.
That's the whole point, isn't it? You know, a small island airline that knows who you are, that cares about you, that's dedicated to your improvement and development, that wants to cultivate love, care, and happiness in your life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Andre, it's so good to see you again, and for the privilege of sharing you with the world. Thank you from us at Uplifting Service and from everyone who's going to enjoy and learn from this report.
Thank you, Ron. Nice to see you again, and all the best.
Thanks for watching this video. Your dedication to serving better and caring more makes the world a better place for everyone. For more uplifting ideas, practical insights, and free resources, please subscribe now.